This is our time. The main news at this hour. I'm Yulia Gorovaya in the studio. Hello. It's not that Europe is at war with Russia, but that Russia is at war with Ukraine and, hypothetically, with many in Europe. This was stated by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on social network X. According to him, Ukraine and its partners understand what the Kremlin is capable of. Europe is afraid of the word escalation and believes that their actions as developed legal states would themselves be an escalation. But Russia does not respect weakness, the president emphasized.
Weakness does not lead to dialogue with Russia. For Russians, it's just weakness, that's all. And that means they can impose their own narratives. That's what's happening. So, to answer the question, what is all this, the violation of European airspace in different countries by drones? It's all tests. Tests for Europe, tests of their response. All these drones and Putin's attacks are tests to see what they're capable of. It's a test to see how America will respond to the current threat to European countries that are in NATO. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And I believe all these tests are dangerous for the integrity of Europe. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Ukraine also plans to order 27 Patriot air defense systems from American manufacturers. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy announced this in an interview with The Guardian. According to him, Kyiv is working closely with international partners to strengthen the protection of Ukrainian airspace from Russian attacks. In addition, Zelenskyy added that European countries could provide Ukraine with their own Patriot systems that they already have. The president of Ukraine also stated, Putin has found himself in a dead-end situation on the battlefield, and the war for the Russian Federation is at a standstill, since the Kremlin has failed to achieve its objectives. Now, according to Zelenskyy, the Russian authorities are forced to look for something to show their people.
It seems to me that he is in a dead-end situation when it comes to real successes on the battlefield. For him, the situation looks more like a stalemate. It's hard for us, but we're at home and defending what's ours. But his story is different. He has radicalized his society and promised goals that he hasn't achieved. That's why he needs to show some kind of achievements. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, in an interview with The Guardian.
2 people were injured as a result of a Russian attack on the Sumy region. Residential buildings, warehouses, and power lines were damaged there. The Dnipropetrovsk region was also hit by the Russians last night. The enemy attacks the Melnikov district and Nikopol with drones. A church, a bank, and a residential building were damaged there. The fires have been extinguished, and there are no casualties. The Odessa region also came under attack this morning. A civilian facility and the facade of a 4-story building were damaged there. The situation in Myrnohrad remains difficult but under control. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. They stated that the defense of the Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad agglomeration is ongoing. Russian forces are suffering heavy losses. Reports of the enemy having full fire control or of Myrnohrad being encircled are not true. Ukrainian units have received weapons and ammunition, and rotation and evacuation of the wounded have also been carried out. The General Staff also noted that supplies are being delivered to Pokrovsk in the same way.
The defense of the Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad agglomeration continues. The situation remains difficult and dynamic. The enemy is using all available reserves, but in return is only suffering heavy losses. In Myrnohrad, Ukrainian units are confidently holding their positions and destroying Russian occupiers on the approaches to the city. Andriy Kovalev, spokesperson for the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, in a comment to RBC Ukraine.
Chaos, unsanitary conditions, alcohol, and drugs. The number of non-combat losses in the Russian army is growing. This was reported by the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. In the Central Military District, more than 600 soldiers have died over the past 2 years. Last year, more than 70 Russian soldiers also committed suicide. In the first half of 2025, there have already been 86 such cases. According to the main intelligence directorate, 32 people in the Russian army have already died due to poor quality food, and more than 100 from drug poisoning.
In the incomplete year of 2025, there have been 112 recorded deaths from drug poisoning, which is almost as many as in all of 2024, when 143 people died. The rise in suicides, crime, and drug abuse among Russian military personnel is a sign of deep demoralization within the occupying forces. From a statement by the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine on Telegram.
Thousands of people are involved in stabilizing Ukraine's energy system after Russian attacks. This was stated by President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Russia has changed its tactics and is now trying to strike both power generation and electricity distribution networks at the same time. Moscow is deliberately targeting substations. If the thermal power plants stop working, then the nuclear power plants won't be able to safely take the generated electricity offline. My colleagues will continue covering this topic.
On the night of November 8th, Russia struck substations that supply electricity to the Khmelnytsky and Rivne nuclear power plants. The nuclear power plants were forced to reduce electricity production after the attack, according to the International Atomic Energy Agency. The shelling was not accidental, but deliberately planned, noted Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha. He called for an urgent meeting of the IAEA board, as the Kremlin's actions threaten nuclear safety not only in Ukraine, but also in European countries. Russia is deliberately putting Europe's nuclear safety at risk. We urge the IAEA Board of Governors to convene an emergency meeting to respond to these unacceptable risks. We also call on all countries that value nuclear safety, including China and India, to demand that Russia stop its reckless attacks on nuclear energy facilities, which create the risk of a catastrophic incident. There must be global pressure to force Moscow to end its nuclear blackmail. Andriy Sybiha, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on Telegram. The Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, once again emphasized the need for restraint in order to maintain nuclear safety. The IAEA also called for preventing an accident with serious radiological consequences. Nuclear safety in Ukraine remains extremely unstable during the war. Two operating nuclear power plants, Khmelnytsky and Rivne, were forced to reduce electricity production after a nighttime attack on a substation critical for nuclear safety. From the statement of the International Atomic Energy Agency on social network X. After the massive attack on Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy emphasized that the world must respond to Russian terror. Kiev appreciates all the steps that partners have already taken. But the new Russian strikes show that pressure on the aggressor country must be increased.
There is not enough pressure on Russia, and any easing of the existing pressure formats only motivates Putin to drag out this war, causing great harm to our country, our people, and others around the world. Weakness in responding to Russian audacity, yes, audacity, gives Russia the motivation to continue this war. There must be so many sanctions, so much pressure, and so much support for life that Russia is left with no means to sustain itself during the war.
After achieving a local ceasefire, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has, for the first time in 6 months, regained access to backup power from the grid following the repair of the second power line. This was reported by IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi. Repairs to the damaged section of the ferroalloy unit No. 1 began on the morning of November 8 after the area was cleared of mines. The power line that was cut on May 7, 2025, has been repaired. However, Grossi emphasized that the overall situation remains very unstable and the IAEA mission in Ukraine is still far from over. During more than 3.5 years of full-scale war, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been disconnected from external power supply 10 times. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was seized by the Russians in the early days of Russia's war against Ukraine. Since then, the Kremlin has constantly staged provocations at the plant, shelling the area. Victoria Chisiakina for Freedom TV channel.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.